hard for people, so give your feedback, let us know, so each year we can improve upon what we're doing here. So, okay, so Ken Murczek is currently working on a dissertation from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro in kinesiology. His dissertation is focused on identifying stress, exhaustion, and burnout, along with providing strategies for an intervention, which I think is so timely for all of us here. We've all got lots going on. Ken has coached volleyball at the collegiate level for the last 15 years and currently serves as the women's assistant volleyball coach here at San Diego State. So let's give Ken a welcome.
Well, thanks for showing up. I know the lunch break we had talked about might hurt our numbers, but thank you for taking time and obviously giving me the opportunity to speak. One update, the dissertation is done.
That's
actually,
right, you
so,
told me that.
yeah,
I was reading my script.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's been a labor of love for 5 years, which I'll talk briefly about here in a minute. But I want to start here by, you're here and thank yourself. And I've got a clip here that I'll show of a gentleman that I kind of hang out with. I do a little yoga with occasionally. And you know, he reminds us every time we show up to our mat to thank ourselves for taking an hour of time for ourselves. And I really thought, you know, the first couple times I was like, man, this guy's nuts, you know, but the more I've listened to him, he's right. You know, when you can actually allocate time, even on a weekly, daily, every other day basis, it's really important. And I've noticed a significant difference. I actually look forward to Fridays. My wife and I go and we go do hot yoga for an hour, and I'm not a huge yoga guy. I'm not super flexible. I can't do a lot of the moves. But just having that hour of time for myself, I've noticed, is something I look forward to on Friday nights. So, you know, this to me is a huge step for you to try to help yourself, that you're actually showing up here, and you're gonna hopefully, you know, be entertained a little bit and learn some stuff, and obviously, hopefully de-stress. And I'm gonna try to give you some tools here today that while you're in your office, still on the clock, that you can hopefully help yourself a little bit, all right? Okay, well, I figure if we're going to start this, I had some Chris Farley and some different actors, but everybody swears, so I couldn't get anything really funny. So we'll start with this, so hopefully you can relax and enjoy. Whoa, we're going to go back for that. Okay, yep, and let's get it rolling here.
Feel the heat between us two. I'm alright, I'm alright, I'm alright. With that big fat butt. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
I wasn't sure about this, so I kind of feel like it might be hurting the cat. Okay, and there's a profanity there, so I had to stop. But so hopefully we'll relax while you're in here. Obviously, we want to enjoy our time together, and we'll get rolling. So I spoke briefly just about my research. So as when we started here, I've been coaching for a long time and kind of applied the food chain. So I went to school here back in the 90s when they had a men's volleyball team, and I got really fortunate to play, and got to play overseas afterwards professionally, and then I decided to stay in that profession and try to climb the food chain on the coaching rank. So I actually started at Queen Amaka College, which is right down the street here, as the head coach, and then from there I went back to the Midwest and I head coached at a Division II school, and then I volunteered at Purdue, and then from Purdue I went to Western Michigan as a paid assistant, then the University of Virginia, then to the University of Kansas, and then I decided I wanted to try to head coach. And I went to the University of North Texas, and then from North Texas I went to Wake Forest, and then from Wake Forest I went to the University of Charleston in beautiful Charleston, West Virginia, if you've ever been there. And then my wife, I think, was about done of seeing every state. She's from Canada, so I told her that this would be a great experience for her. Then we came here to San Diego State, and obviously to be back in Peterson Gym where I played 20 years ago, it's still there. You know, it's kind of a neat thing, but 5 years ago, I started this process of looking actually at myself as I've kind of climbed this food chain and put myself in different situations coaching. And as I was out talking to other coaches, I noticed that a lot of us, I think, aren't in a great state of mind, and even our work-life balance. You know, we're on the road recruiting pretty much every weekend, and if you have family and kids, and just, you know, I just didn't feel like the model was really healthy. So when I had started school, again, I was like, hey, this is something I think I'm gonna focus on. And what I noticed as I went through this process over the last 5 years is there's a lot of parallels in different occupations. So obviously I was just looking at athletics, but I started to read a lot about athletic training and teaching, and as I started going through these things, and there's a lot of common threads. It wasn't just with coaches. So last year I actually presented here, and I don't know if anybody was here last year, but you know, I had a real interactive, we did some polling, and I actually used some of the methodology that I used in my dissertation for trying to check your perceived stress. So we did a 10-question survey, and you got to see what your score was, and then we did some burnout things, and it was pretty, I think, interesting for you all to kind of look and go, wow, you know, I'm on this scale here. But it got me thinking for this year, hey, we talked about last year, are you stressed or not, and what causes it? Well, let's this year talk about how do we help it? You know, what's the intervention? How do we de-stress? And so that's kind of how we got here today, just so you kind of know what's going on. I'm gonna ask you to meet some people in here. You know, we all work at San Diego State, and I think that's a great thing. And you know, it always bothers me whenever I go on campus, I don't know anybody. I mean, I don't even know anybody in the athletic department. I mean, it's like, holy cow, we just had a function last week, and I'm looking around going, I know 10 of these people maybe in this whole thing. And so I'm gonna try to help bridge that gap. I'm gonna just give you some idea of what stress is. So obviously, physiologically, there's some things that go on. And even when we do this exercise, some of you are gonna get a little bit anxious because your ability to interact or socialize, it causes some things to happen. You might start pitting out, or you might start sweating. It might cause some things to happen because it's uncomfortable. It's not comfortable for you to meet new people and to do that. So then obviously why you came today, I'm gonna try to go through a series of things, and those balls that I gave you are not to throw at me, all right, even if I'm not doing a very good job. But we're gonna work on some different things with those, again, that you can do at your desk. So, so that's kind of what's in store for today. That is not me, okay? I just joked about pitting out, okay? That's not. But you know, this is the profession that I'm in. You know, it's kind of the path I chose, and one article that really changed kind of my direction when I was doing my research was, I don't know how many of us follow football, but Urban Meyer was the coach at Florida, and then he went to Ohio State, and how he's done actually. And he had wrote an article in ESPN, and it was called The Lone Wolf, if you're interested in it. But he talked about chasing an Ambien with a beer every night to fall asleep to. And that's the only way he could figure out how to stop the grinding. And the grinding is real. We all have it, just like right now, we all have an internal voice that's almost like taboo to talk about, but you know, somebody's going, bald guy's crazy, I don't know what he's talking about up there. But we all have this internal voice. And it was really neat that he actually went on record talking about this. And his whole point was, if I'm having this experience, it has to be happening to other coaches. And it's not good. And obviously that's why he shut it down at Florida, because he had some major health issues. But as I mentioned, I'm gonna try to provide us some intervention, and just so you can understand that my world, unfortunately, is, you know, controlled by 16 to 21-year-old females. We recruit them when they're 15, 16 years old, then they come to college. We try to coach them up for 18, 19, 20, 21-ish, and then we're done. And so you can imagine, and I'm the only male on staff, you know, I get a fun day every day of dealing with the other sex, and even that has been a real education for me of coaching both men and women, and what the gender differences are, which that's a whole nother day, but it's been interesting for me. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're gonna meet a couple people here. So what I want you to do is name, department, job title, and something you would like to share about yourself. So I'm gonna allocate maybe about 2 minutes, but I want you to actually physically get up, move, and go meet 3 new people. And if this causes you stress, wonderful, because we're gonna talk about it. Okay, and I'm gonna open up that door because I think it's a little warm here. So you got 2 minutes, you're on the clock. Here we go. Three people. One minute. All right, so even an exercise like this, people are smiling, and some of you stayed with the same person because it was a good dialogue, and there's different things that are happening to your body that we'll learn about. Endorphins are released, and different things that make you feel good, and there's obviously, as I mentioned, for some of us it might have been stressful, right? You don't really want to interact with other people, and that's okay, right? That's okay. But we're going to learn just about what happens physiologically a little bit here. All right, so I chose this guy 'cause he's bald. I'm kidding. But there's a difference here of eustress and distress. So good stress, I'll call it, which is when we have a fight or flight. Something happens quickly, and it stresses us out. It might help us focus, but then our body can quickly switch back off versus a prolonged time of stress, which when that happens, that's when we get some major, as we've seen recently in the news, there's a lot of health things that are now being related directly to stress. And that's what happens with chronic or prolonged stress. So I'm going to have several of these little 1-minute videos. They're not at all as fun as the first one we saw. That's why I figured I'd start with that one to get you engaged. But we'll learn here from the bald guy here. Oh, I'm over 2 on that. And I thought I'd bring the keyboard to be better. All right.
Stress is a part of life, and it's not always a bad part of life. Most of us enjoy good stress in small doses, like roller coasters, watching sports, or even a scary movie. That's the kind of stress that keeps us young and on our toes. Then there's bad stress, or worse, chronic stress. Negative stress isn't just in your head. It can affect us both mentally and physically. Stress hormones in the body for extended periods of time can physically age our cells. So when you're stressed at work or home, your cells look and act older, making you look older and even impacting your immune system. Not only does it add years to your appearance, it can also affect your memory, making brain cells shrink permanently. Even short-term stress can make it hard for you to remember simple things. The good news is, you can manage stress now to prevent more damage to your body and mind tomorrow. Stress management is a skill that can...
All right, so yeah, he's getting down. So we'll talk, as I mentioned in the kind of with the beginning, we'll get into about 6 different ways to try to help manage the stress. But as I mentioned, there's some good and bad with stress. It's not all bad. Physiological response. We've got a little 1 minute here of
Let's roll.
explaining it here.
What is stress? Stress is your body's way of reacting to any kind of demand or threat. When the body feels stress, your hypothalamus, a tiny region in your brain, signals your adrenal glands, located atop your kidneys, to release a surge of hormones, which include adrenaline and cortisol, into the bloodstream. As these hormones are released, the liver is triggered to produce more blood sugar, which gives you an energy kick, and breathing becomes more rapid, and heartbeat and blood pressure rise. If the stress is caused by physical danger, these chemicals can be beneficial, as they give you more energy and strength, and also speed up your reaction time and enhance your focus. But if the stress is caused by something emotional, it can be harmful, because there's no outlet for this extra energy and strength. Once the source of stress has passed, hormone levels return to normal, as do heart rate and blood pressure, and other systems also.
All right, so just again, if you have never taken an anatomy and physiology class, and you're probably going, what the heck's going on here? If you have taken anatomy and physiology, it might have been 20-some years ago like me, and I'm going, oh yeah, this makes sense maybe. So maybe you've heard some of these words. But I just want you to understand just a little bit of what's happening when stress happens to your body, okay? That's kind of the point of showing you this. So, good old Macaulay Culkin there, I think, or something like that, Home Alone. I want you to think of the top 3 stressors. So when I did my research, and I surveyed Division I head women's volleyball coaches, I asked them to list, so it was an open-ended question. I asked them to list what their major stressors are. Obviously, this is very specific to my profession, right? And as you can imagine, your win-loss record, unfortunately, as a coach, you have very limited control in that. I can't play, right? My eligibility's up. So the outcome of that match, I've got to do it in practice, because once the lights go on, the jerseys come on, I'm kind of out of it. I can help tactically, but I can't play anymore. And it's my theory that, that's a big issue. The other part is administrative pressure. So for us, where you work or what you work, you said you're on budget. There's a bottom line, right? There's numbers that you have to hit. Well, for us, to get evaluated, you just get online and see if we won or lost. Nobody really cares about grade point average and a lot of these other things that go into the student athlete, and that obviously wears on you. So I wasn't shocked that win-loss was number 1 for coaches. Team and player issues. I talked about 16 to 21-year-old females, and you can imagine the wonderful decisions that they make all the time, and just how they treat each other. It's a completely different generation now in the social media, and everybody puts on their thing how great everything is when it's not, and how easy it is to hammer on people, and there's no repercussion. And I'm not teaching you or talking about anything you don't know. And the last one is just the work-life balance, which obviously I talked about a little bit when we started. So I just want you to think about what maybe your top 3 stressors are in your job. And if you don't mind sharing, as you're kind of thinking about that, if you could throw 1 or 2 out, I'm just kind of interested in what it is. Is it a timeline? Is it, hey, they give me a phone, and my email's connected to my phone, and when I go home at night, my phone is buzzing all the time, and it's from San Diego State, and it's hard not to look at it. And I mean, I can keep giving you example after example, but does anybody have anything that they, don't worry, it's not recorded in here, I'm going to share. Yeah.
I think for me, it's the high stakes impact of what we do on our students. It could be very drastic, one decision that we make versus another.
Are you in admissions?
No, I'm an international student advisor. I deal with their visa records.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the difference between them being able to stay here and pursue their studies or having to leave the country.
Yeah, and I just think of it from an admission standpoint of how tough it would be to decide, we're the second most applied school in the country. I mean, so we're telling a lot of people no, and those kids that do get a yes, the margin has to be so thin. I mean, it's got to be incredible to be in that position. I would think that would be stressful. One more, anybody else? Go ahead.
That's for me. Often I gotta wait on other people to get me stuff, so I can finish my stuff. So it can be a little bit difficult, asking people to get something.
Yeah, I've got a coworker in this room, and I know what that's like. Trust me. All right. Kidding. We won't don't say who you are. She's probably saying it about me more like so. All right, ways to distress. So, yeah, we're not throwing those, all right, just so you know. So ways to distress. So we'll talk, we're gonna actually do some things in here, but you know, I think the most common or what gets a lot of buzz is, as I mentioned, the yoga or meditation or mindfulness or some of these types of things. And you know, I've experimented with a lot of those things, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, all right? And I think that taking a walk, for example, in the woods, may give you the same benefits as it does for the person that's going to sit there and do yoga. And I think that that's, you know, you need to understand that you know what you need, he knows what he needs. All right, but I've got a clip here of, as I mentioned, of a buddy here that I know, and this guy, and I'm just going to let him play as I kind of talk. But, oh, well, now I'm going to screw that video up too. Well, at least I'm consistent, 3 for 3. All right. He does a free yoga, it's donation-based yoga. You can hear when he talks. Holy cow. That's really not his jail shot, okay? He's a good guy, he's not arrested.
Hey, reverse warrior.
And he's got a...
Exhale, take it down, step it back.
But
Lower, slow, or just step back to down dog. That's cool too.
yeah, he's got...
Upwards on your inhale.
We'll let him talk.
Exhale, hips high. Downward facing. Ah!
So he's got a lot of doggies and different things. His terminology is not your typical straight arrow. And a lot of people relate to that because they're the weekend warrior yoga person that's not out there. And this is a free class that he does. So he does donation-based yoga. So people show up. Some people give nothing. Some people give $1. Some people give him a hug. And this is in Pacific Beach. And he's done this now for 13 years. Right past where Crystal Pier is, just south. You can see it. There's a little piece of grass there. It's right on Law Street if you've ever been down there. And you can look him up. He's got a YouTube channel that's free. So every one of his classes are online. And then he's got a bunch of resources up there. But it's kind of a neat thing. It's right here in our community. And it doesn't really, I mean, you know, depending on how heavy you want to go, it's a kind of almost a free resource. So I asked him because he does some things breathing that I think are really good. So I had asked him if I could get him to speak for a minute about breathing, because we're going to actually do a breathing exercise after this. So he's going to just give us a little history or physiology of what's happening with your breath. So I'm going to get this one. Now watch this. Get better.
So the simplest way to de-stress, it sounds really overly simple, but it's breathing, right? It's breathing. It's a tool we can use at any point, right? Whether you're at work, whether you're in traffic, whether you're doing anything, right? Deep diaphragm breathing stimulates your vagus nerve. When that's stimulated, that shuts off that fight or flight. All day long, we have cortisol running, right? We're in this fight or flight. I'm here, I gotta get there, I'm doing this, I gotta do that. This shuts that off and returns you back to a healthier state, a rest and digest state. And so just deep breathing, right? 4 to 6 seconds in, 4 to 6 seconds out. Deep diaphragm breathing can help you de-stress, and I use it all the time, and it's one of the best tools I have in my arsenal for de-stressing for sure. So hope you use it.
Cool. And we're going to do it right now, and I've got a visual to try to help you. It helped me the first time that I messed around with this to understand when I should come in, when I should hold it, when I should go out. So we're going to do just a couple here, and then I'll put that up so you have a visual. But as he mentioned, if you can breathe in, and let's just all try this through your nose. So we're going to come in, and then we're going to hold it, and then we're going to push it out, as he mentioned, through our stomach or through our diaphragm. And I'm going to count. So I want it to be a 5 count. So a 5-second through your nose, a 5-second hold, and then a 5-second exhale. All right, so let's all, if you need to blow it out, all right, so we can get ready to get it in. But let's all try it together. Let's pull it in through our nose for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's hold on to it. and push it out with your stomach, either out of your mouth or your nose. Now let's do it one more time. In through your nose. Hold on to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So there is a ton of research that if you do that 5 times, which would be 1 minute and 15 seconds, that your vitals will decrease immensely. And they've hooked people up with EKGs and the whole deal, and just 5 of those. And again, that's something that's free that you can do at work. And I want you to just watch this, and we're going to do 5 of them and try to kind of just chill out here for 1 minute and 15 seconds, all right? And I'm going to hammer this video. I'm not going to screw this up. Awesome. Here we go. It's going to start, so let's get all of our air out right away. And right when I hit it, it's going to ask us to go through our nose. So you can just follow the screen. It's going to hold and push it out. Come back in to inhale. Awesome. So there's, and you can Google this, it's called box breathing, and there's a ton of them on YouTube and online, and it just fills up the box, but it helps you, it gives you something to visualize and see to help with when it comes in, when I hold it. A lot of people will teach you to hold the breath again before you inhale. And that's kind of what box breathing is. It's 4 cycles. So it would be an inhale, a hold, an exhale, a hold, and then an inhale. Again, it's individual. I personally have a hard time holding it before I want to inhale again. It's just not comfortable to me. So I didn't talk about it today. I didn't bring you through it. Okay, that's what you get when you're in charge. All right. Okay, myofascial release. All right, what the heck is that? Again, if you're not an athletic trainer, you probably have no idea what this word is. All right, so I'm going to ask my friend here for 50 seconds to explain this, and then we're going to have some fun.
Fascial release. Myofascial release is a technique used by massage therapists to help release the tension in the muscles, alleviate pain, release the toxins out of the body, and also help increase range of motion. And you may wonder, well, where does that come from, myofascial? It actually comes from the word fascia. And fascia, I have a little diagram here that's going to help understand what it is. It's a complicated system that is actually help connect all the tissues inside the body. If anyone has ever skinned chicken, fried chicken, you have seen fascia. That is that whitish type of membrane that you see that's under the skin. And that's what helps connect the skin to the muscles, to the tissues. And so here in this doc.
All right, and I mean, there's just no way I could not do this.
Welcome to 1975, Austin Powers and Fascia.
I mean, fascia, come on. I mean, if that's not where your brain went the first time you just heard that, I mean, come on, get with me. All right, maybe not. Maybe we don't have a lot of Austin Powers fans in here, but okay. All right, so I want you to take off your shoes. All right. So we're gonna work on some stuff here. So I know some of you might have nice boots on. If you want to take one off, that's okay. If your feet are sweaty and stinky, it's okay. It's okay. But we're going to work on some myofascia releasing here, okay? So I'm going to have a demo up here so you can see, all right? Oh yeah, did I miss, does anybody not have a ball? I think I got everybody on their way in. We're good? Okay, yeah, and I've got a tennis and a golf ball, and we're gonna experiment with both, all right? But I want you to watch this. It's about 20 seconds, basically, so you can understand how they're just rolling it, all right? So I'm gonna show this, and we're gonna experiment with this a little bit here. So if you are at all a runner or anything, you might have heard of the word plantar fasciitis. That's a pretty common thing that happens when you run. So let's just take a look. Dang it, I was on such a good roll. But, you know, I'm human. It's okay. Okay, so you can see they're kind of just going pretty slowly, and then they'll pick up the pace. All right, so go ahead and try that on your ball. And you can control the pressure of how hard you want to push down on it. And then I want you to turn to your neighbor, because it should be every other person should have a golf ball. And we're going to try the golf ball, but we'll try that after this next one. So just kind of roll that around, see how that feels. And you can check this one out too. This is a little bit faster of a motion, and they go side to side. So it's kind of really digging in, and then they're going to hold it. At some point, they hold it, I thought. Yeah, to really try to dig it in on an area. All right? Yeah, little toe wigs. All right, good. All right, go ahead and flip with somebody, so you can try what a golf ball feels like versus a tennis ball. What's that? All right, okay, all right. And I had thought about going through a whole progression. Yeah. Yep. Are you capable of catching? Awesome. Yeah. I have not messed much with this one, actually. I'll ice and stuff in the office. Yeah. All right, so you can Google that. There is a whole progression of things that a lot of us wear our stress, for example, in our neck or in our shoulders. And this is incredible to lean into the ball. And again, this is something in the office that you can just lean into, depending on what your chair is like. You can just put it in your chair and just let it sit in there. Absolutely. I mean, even the tennis ball or the golf ball might even work better because it'll sit right on a concentrated area. So again, depending on what your tolerance is, the golf ball you notice is probably a lot more. I mean, it's intense, and if you put a lot of pressure on there, it'll relieve some things. But it's going to let you know about it. Where the tennis ball is a lot more forgiving. So. Again, just something that you can do sitting at your office that I know for me that, boy, this puts my mind in a different spot. And if you're sitting at a desk all day and you're hunched over, you know, it might not be something to think about or something to think about. All right, moving on. Okay, aromatherapy. You might have smelt something when you came in today, all right? Hopefully it was good, all right? But right in the back there at the door, my assistants, what did you choose? Lavender. Yes. All right. So there's a couple different ways that aromatherapy can work. If you've ever gotten a massage, they may rub it in, or they may use an oil to rub in that obviously has some kind of fragrance. There's a diffuser that I have there in the back room. I've seen people take, for example, the oil like this and put it on their hands, and then they, and I mean, they just, whoa. And I tried it once, and I mean, it made my eyes, I was like, wow, what are you doing? But it gets in there. So let's just, it's about 45 seconds. We've got a little explanation of just what happens or is going on with your body when this goes on.
Scents are like everything else in the world. They are made of molecules. Different molecules have different scents. When you inhale the scent of a rose, you're actually inhaling molecules the rose releases into the air. These molecules travel up in your nose and get stuck to your olfactory membrane, which contains highly specialized nerve endings called olfactory receptors. Once these nerves recognize a particular scent molecule, they send a signal to your olfactory bulb, which signals your cortex and limbic system. Next, hormones and neurochemicals are released. You probably know that different hormones and neurochemicals create different reactions in your body. So if a rose reminds you of romance, you're going to be flooded with romantic thoughts. Or if lavender relaxes you, your body is filled with relaxing hormones. Aromatherapy really does affect your body in a comprehensive, holistic way. Your emotions, hormones, and healing responses are all influenced for the better.
Yeah, and again, I think everybody's, the way that they either like or dislike the scent, it's a personal thing, but it's neat to know that something, that easy can start affecting, hopefully some positive things for you, which is great. All right, we always hear about diet. Diet matters. This is actually from about a month ago that this woman, and I won't steal her thunder because I want her to explain what she does in the name because I've never heard this before. But obviously, diet matters. What you put in can affect everything.
So just broadly speaking, what is nutritional psychiatry? Well, it's the idea that maybe a psychiatrist should be asking you what was on your dinner plate last night. What did you eat for lunch? The idea that food plays an essential role in our mental health in the same way that we think about it playing a role in cardiovascular disease, in our blood sugar management, in our gastrointestinal health. John LaPouf just did Sunday morning, we talked about its effects on cancer. So it's something that we don't often think about. But there has been recent research in this emerging field in the last 5 years that shows that healthier dietary patterns can reduce the risk of things like depression and anxiety.
What's the connection?
So the brain is a highly metabolic organ. It uses a lot of energy, a lot of nutrients. It's always on. And it depends on fuel, but not just any fuel, like a car. You want to give it expensive, high-quality fuel. That means foods that have the right nutrients, the right vitamins, the right sources of protein, because these form the building blocks for the neurotransmitters in the brain, for the cellular structure of the brain, for the enzymes in the brain.
Well, all I know is a cheeseburger always puts me in a really good mood, and I know, I know you're not talking about that kind of food, unfortunately.
No, we're
So
not.
when you talk about healthy kind of food, other than the usual, the greens and the legumes and the avocados, what are, I like those too. What are the unexpected things that people might not think about that you think you should
Yeah,
try?
that's a mood booster.
That's a mood
Well,
booster, yeah.
there are healthy dietary patterns, for instance, the Mediterranean diet that's been studied and shown to reduce risk of depression. But there's also specific nutrients and vitamins, things like the B vitamins, omega-3s, iron, zinc, folate, magnesium, choline. These are some other things that people can think about, probiotics, prebiotics. And the idea is that when you eat these foods, essentially many of them can become the basis for the brain chemicals, the neurotransmitters. So serotonin, for instance, one of the main neurotransmitters in the brain, 90% of it is produced in the gastrointestinal tract. In addition, the fruits and vegetables that you eat give you antioxidants. These can be anti-inflammatory. It can boost your immune system when you get the right vitamins.
So just think about, what you have at your desk at work. And, what do you reach for? Is it a candy bar? Is it a Coke? Is it and think about what that does just as it breaks down in your body and what you're doing for yourself, especially, for example, if you're feeling stressed. That if you have all this sugar and you spike, or caffeine, that you're gonna have to come down. And if you're constantly playing this game with your body, and with your mind, obviously for de-stressing, you can help that, right? You're in charge of what you put in your mouth. And I challenge a lot of people, about that a lot, that, you get to decide. And as she mentioned, I want a cheeseburger, that sounds good to me. Yes, I agree. But at the end of the day, if it's not helping you, or this is another way to help yourself de-stress, you're in charge of that, okay? And I think that it was really impactful when I found this. I thought, wow, this is cool that, you know, it's even on this, you know, it's even in our diet. Physical activity, the no shocker. This is a very simple explanation, but I really like it. So
the first and
we'll
most
see what
popular
happens.
theory is that exercise causes a rush of endorphins, which are neurotransmitters that reduce pain perception and create a sensation of euphoria. A second and more well-researched theory is that exercise increases the concentrations of norepinephrine, which acts similarly to many antidepressants, and that it enhances the amygdala, which is the portion of the brain involved in emotional and stress response. The third major theory is that exercise better prepares the body to deal with stress by forcing physiological systems to communicate, thus increasing the efficiency of.
All right, so just so you understand a little bit of what stress does for you, or I'm sorry, exercise does, and how it can help lower your stress. And we are unbelievably lucky that we work somewhere where we can walk right above here, and there's a little workout room up here. And I don't know if you know that in the student union, there's a satellite one. The Arc, which is, you know, on the other side of the arena. All right, we can take a walk. You know, we don't work. I was on jury duty a couple weeks ago, and you know, it's a concrete jungle right in there, and I'm going, gosh, you know, even at lunch. But you can go down to the harbor, which was a couple blocks away, which was nice. But I mean, we can walk. We've got a little koi pond, you know, right over here on campus. There's things here that we can do, and there's a. And you can Google this. We have a well-being and health promotion. You might get these emails like I do that are blasted out. That, you know, on Tuesday at 12 o'clock, they're going to meet and walk for 30 minutes. Or at 4:30 on Thursdays, you know, or 5 o'clock when people get off, they're going to take a 30-minute walk around campus. They have noon meditation or yoga. I've gotten those emails too that are all free. So, you know, again, it's nice that we have those resources and that San Diego State's doing that for us, which is great because that's not everywhere. All right, this will be one of the last things that we kind of talk about, but just music. You know, you see, and again, depending on where you work, can you put headphones in, can you not? Can you play it really low? But music has a huge impact on us. And this gentleman is I'll almost do this now.
It is just amazing. And when you hear music that you like, you want to move. You want to maybe get up and dance, or tap your feet or your fingers. Music also affects us at the biological level. Internally, it can affect blood pressure, heart rate, hormones. Externally, it can affect us, give us goosebumps, or spine-tingling chills, or, as with Eric's music, can drive us to tears. Now, as far as we know, all groups of people around the world make, appreciate, and respond to music. It is a universal human skill.
All right, so I think we'd all agree with that. And he's going to continue.
What I want to do now is to show you the power of music, showing how music can change the way we view the world. What I'm showing you here is a picture in silence so that you can get the feel for this visual image. Just watch.
Not so much fun. He doesn't know we live in San Diego. Some of us might go in the ocean.
Now, I'm going to ask these wonderful members of the Perth Symphony Orchestra to play a piece of music. See how you feel about it this time. Wasn't it? No wonder music is so important in.
As you can imagine, he then goes and he plays this, and what does it do? Yeah, Jaws. Okay, and what they end up, and I want to be able to get through everything. So they end up hooking up this gentleman here with, and they put a headgear on him, and they start playing music and just tracking his brain waves. And it's absolutely fascinating how much your brain is going especially if it's music you like or you can associate with, or that draws maybe some image back to you because of the song, and it's really fascinating stuff. And then we'll let them kind of close it up.
You're expecting it, you're anticipating it. A group in Montreal showed that during that anticipation phase, when you're expecting this emotional peak, there's a release of this neurotransmitter called dopamine in a certain part of the brain. When the emotional peak arrives, you could call it, if you like, the musical climax, there's a sudden burst of dopamine in another part of the brain that is associated with the reward areas. Now, interestingly, dopamine is also involved in other pathways, which include process information about motivation, attention, movement, and addiction. When imaging the brain, areas that are active when you perform a social task, one that requires empathy and understanding somebody else's feelings, those areas are the same as those that are activated when you listen to pleasurable music that you like. Now, what is particularly interesting is that the levels of a hormone called oxytocin in the bloodstream are raised when people are singing together, but particularly...
So for sake of time, he kind of rolls. I want to do an experiment quickly, and to see if this makes your hair stand up. All right, he talks a little bit about this.
Just the color street cup.
Anybody? Did that do anything for anybody? Any hairs on the back of the neck? Nothing? No? Okay. Maybe you don't associate with that song or Aerosmith or anything else, but that's okay. There's a big research project on that. They prompted some people to give them a little education on what was going to happen, and just that tone that people could associate with it, and it made some things tingle. It was pretty fascinating stuff. So little takeaway today, all right? I would encourage you to text yourself one or two things that you know you can do at work to help yourself de-stress. I would really encourage you to do that. I would put a sticky note in your office of something that you know helps you de-stress, to remind yourself so you can see it. I've done this. I know people that do this. They have a picture on their desk, you know, and right when they see that picture, it brings them automatically back to a good spot. Planning vacations is something that, you know, when you're on lunch or you get a 5-minute break, that really helps de-stress, because again, it puts you in a different place, and it's something that you're looking forward to. We did the breathing exercise. That was a minute and 15 seconds. It probably felt like an eternity for some of us, if you haven't really ever focused on your breath. And the last thing I have there is, obviously you're in control of how you respond to your stress. So, you know, I would really encourage you, especially some of you that shared, what can you do when that moment comes, when somebody isn't, you know, pulling their weight or getting the stuff turned in on time? How do you respond to it? Because you ultimately, you can control that. You know, and for me, well, you know, I've figured out, if I get to go play a little beach volleyball before I come in to work at 6:15 in the morning, if I can get in my van and go out to Pine Valley, if I can, you know, do something like this or talk to kids, I've learned over my years that if you give kids ice cream, that really gets them happy. And obviously, you know, end of the day, we live in San Diego, you know, drive down to the beach. You know, that has been, for me, something that I've identified really helps me de-stress. If you don't know who this guy is, I would strongly encourage you to look him up. He's on Netflix or YouTube. And we're going to close with him here. Has anybody heard of this guy before? Slow-mo? Yes?
I'd say that before slow-mo, I became the typical institutionalized educated Western man. In other words, I was driving a BMW to work, I was working long hours, I was paying my taxes and doing everything by the standards of society and so on, just like everybody else in the workforce. And frankly, I intended just to work myself on into oblivion and get old and die. That was pretty much the scenario.
You never see this guy down at the beach
But now,
every day.
I experience myself like the tip of a great iceberg of consciousness.
You've never been down on the boardwalk in Mission Beach or Pacific Beach?
I don't know. I mean, he might have been a musician. He might have been an actor.
He got this disease where he can't recognize faces. Like, if he looks at your face, he just sees like a blur.
I think he might be like a veteran.
No one knows that he's homeless, if he's not. He hangs out here all day, every day.
He roller skates on one like such.
You say slow-mo to anybody at Pacific Beach, they know exactly what you're talking about.
What's interesting to me is that nobody knows who Slow-mo really is.
Say that, you know that they're saying like, that was Batman, there must be something happening in the city. What we're gonna do is let the music determine everything. The imagination is picturing a forest and Indians.
Knowing John 40 years, what he's doing is clearly a radical departure from his background.
He was a neuroscientist at Scripps, and after how many years decided that he was starting to die, and he figured out that I'm sick of killing myself and grinding it every day. What do I love doing? And he loved rollerblading. And as he mentioned, what we talked about with the music, you know, he can put himself in such a state, and the Netflix or the YouTube video, it's 12 minutes, but it's fascinating because he actually goes through the science of, you know, what it's doing to his brain, you know, when he puts the music on and when he's, you know, trying to balance and try to go on one state. So it's fascinating, but, you know, it kind of just goes back to when I started about life balance. You know, it's something that we all deal with and something that's real, and everybody wants to grind it out and work harder and do and climb the food chain. And as I mentioned, just my experience of moving every 2 or 3 years, and you know, it takes its toll. So thank you so much. If you can return your tennis ball or your golf ball on your way out, do not throw it. I wasn't that bad. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a great weekend. All right. You get a good smell of lavender on your way out. Thanks again. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
And I knew we worked here, but I hadn't seen it.
I'm with you. It's hard. It's hard to share. Yeah, and diet and all that. Hey, thanks for coming.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was really good.
Good. I'm glad you had fun. Yeah.
I'm taking
Thanks,
this.
man. All right. Nice to
I'm
meet you.
taking this. So I can hit you with it. Good job, Kenny.
Mel, hang on. I'll walk back with you.
Okay.
I'm heading that way.
Thanks again, guys.